This was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Marcellus Hambrick in Bucksnort, Tennessee.
Well, all right. If that is indeed your real name and location.
Well, Bucksnort, Tennessee is the home of the Dirty White Boy, isn't it?
Well, but I don't know about Marcellus.
Marcellus Hambrick.
I don't know if they can spell Marcellus down in Bucksnort. Exit 152 off I-40 in between Jackson and Memphis.
Well, let's get this question from exit
Jackson
152.
and Nashville, I should say. Jackson and Nashville.
Jim, what is your opinion of Sid Vicious? His career, his runs in WWE, including his title run. Also, was he ever approached about working for you in Smoky Mountain?
Oh!
I met him at a softball tournament in Little Rock. Of course you did. Of course he did. I met him at a softball tournament in Little Rock quite a few years ago, and he was very approachable, unlike what I heard about him previously.
Well, it's not that he's not approachable and he's a prick. He's a lunatic, but he's not a prick. Sid is a big old country boy that had those genetics and got into bodybuilding and ended up looking like that. And when somebody looks like that, naturally, people are going to ask him to get into wrestling, or at least back in those days when you had to be a grown man. He was never a natural worker. He was never good at in-ring wrestling, but he had that look and that intensity and the look on his face. And even when he was saying nonsense, he looked scary doing it. And then, of course, he was exposed inside the wrestling business through a couple of various incidents as not being able to fight and his muscles being all show, no go. And if he had had a more open mind about learning how to work, he may have been better at it. But Sid don't think on the same level as everybody else about a lot of various things. So he's always been nice to me, except when, the midnight matches with the skyscrapers, I've said were just awful, but at least Sid looked like a star, whereas Spivey just sucked. But the worst thing about the thing when I heard that he was coming back in fucking 97 or whenever, the WWF, I'm like, well, fuck, because it had just been a year or whatever since the deal with Arn. I've always liked Arn Anderson as a person and as a wrestler. And it
was a few years before 97, just for the record. Okay,
well, it was a couple of years, whatever the fuck. The point is, I hadn't seen him since that happened, and I didn't want to see him. And I told Vince, I said, the fucking guy's a psycho, and that's where Psycho Sid came from. Because I was saying he's a fucking psycho. You want to hire this guy that fucking stabbed Arn Anderson and caused all this fucking chaos. I said, you don't know whether he's going to show up or go to softball. I've told the story that time he told downtown Bruno Harvey Whippleman he was having a heart attack and had to leave the building in San Antonio before his interview, where I'd had to talk him into coming, tell his wife he had to come or Vince was going to fire him because he'd been off injured. And he was at a softball tournament that day. He was off injured, but he took the boys up to the softball in West Memphis or whatever. She even said,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the softball stories, because those are always the ones people point to. It's always softball, squeegee, stabbing.
Yeah.
With the softball stuff, when you were on the booking committee, were you already hearing stories about that? When did it start that people knew that he was a big softball guy? Was he playing with Lawler?
Oh, goddamn, yes. Yes. He played, he coached kids in West Memphis softball team. He played on a softball team. He did anything with softball. In 90 or 91 or whatever the fuck that they had the first time he left WCW and went to the WWF. 91. Okay, the deal he had given Jim Herd was, you give me X amount of $100,000 a year. I think it was like $400,000, and Herd agreed to that. And you make me the world champion, and Herd agreed to that. And you give me softball season off. And he wouldn't agree to that, and that's why Sid went to the WWF. And then when I called to say Vince demands Sid be in San Antonio, injured or not, all he's got to do is an interview. And his wife was like, well, he's taking the team up to West Memphis or whatever. She said, sometimes he thinks he might just be happier if he went back to selling farm chemicals. I'm like, a lot of other guys would be happier too if he did that. Sean wanted to work with him because Sid would err on the side of safety and be very light rather than Vader, who was erring on the other side and would be very convincing. But you always knew Sid, he was going to get hurt, or he was going to get in a bad mood, or softball season was going to come up, or something was going to happen in his mind. And he wasn't going to be there long. And plus, as I told Jim Hurd, and I tried to reiterate with Vince McMahon, Sid's a guy you steal a pay-per-view with. He can't perform week in, week out, every TV show, every show. People see through him easy. Bring him in and bring him out and keep him in the shadows and then blow something with him and get a big fucking pay-per-view main event and people won't see through it. He's like a modern-day Magnificent Zulu. But they wanted to try to fucking just work him like one of the boys. And
Vince didn't care about the stabbing?
No. Well, we don't know what happened over there. That's another company, because I'm like, what the fuck? All I know is Arn Anderson didn't instigate it. He didn't instigate it in the bar. He told Sid to shut the fuck up after Arn had a few cocktails, and he's done that to a lot of people and made him look like an idiot because Arn verbally can do that. But Arn was in his room when Sid went knocking on the door to continue it, and Sid went with the fucking chair leg. So that, to me, puts him in the wrong. They were Arn's scissors, but Arn grabbed them as a defensive mechanism and got to stab Sid first before Sid took him away because he had the drop on Arn when Arn opened the door and he came around from the side with the chair leg. So, fuck Sid, be quite honest. I'm sure it was roid rage because I can't imagine he's still alive. With the amount of chemicals he's pumped in his body, he should have blown up long before now. I've never been able to say anything bad about him personally, otherwise he was a rotten wrestler, but fuck him for doing that to Arn. Just because Arn told him in front of the boys what all the boys thought of him, because he was running his mouth about how great he was, and he wasn't.
In terms of the name Psycho Sid, who decided on the spelling? S-Y-C-H-O.
That was either Vince or Creative Services, the folks that brought you Chili McFreeze. I don't know, because well, we can spell it with an S. Okay, all right, whatever the fuck. But as a matter of fact, it was Vince, because he's Psycho Sid. That's good shit, pal.
Was he using that line back then? Good shit?
He doesn't use it like other people use their favorite phrase, but you would hear, that's good shit, in that voice of his, and it's memorable just because of the way he says it. But he doesn't say it every goddamn day. Because
that's one of the things Moxley and I think maybe even Brody Lee said about Vince, where he would defend stuff by saying, it's such good shit.
Well, yeah, he does that. I'm not saying he does it in every meeting every day, but yes, that is a Vince thing that Vince says. That's good shit, pal. And then, it's like Edward G. Robinson never really said you dirty rat every time he came out, opened his mouth, but it,
yeah.
That became the fucking cliche. You dirty rat, you killed my brother, you dirty rat.
Well, on that note, we wrap
You dirty rat, you killed my business, you dirty rat. I wouldn't be able to find the rat that killed this business. Like, God damn, the old whore the night after the prom. Everybody had a shot at her.